I would like to have a basic algebra discussion here, and I want to go over a few topics. So I'm going to start out with prime numbers, then factoring numbers, then prime factorization, then least common multiples. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so now, let's see, prime numbers. Alright, so we can, let's think, what are prime numbers? Prime numbers, in a very basic sense, are numbers that have factors that are 1 and itself. So numbers like, well, except for 1. So 2, for example. Might be a little small there. 2 has a factor of 1 in itself, so. Well, what are factors? And let's talk about that. Factors are components of a number that when you multiply them together, you get that number. So 2 is equal to 2 times 1. Alright. So the only factors of 2 are 2 and 1, because there are no other numbers that you can multiply together to give you 2. Likewise, 3 is another prime number. That's only 3 times 1. 4 is not a prime number because you can factor it as 2 times 2 or 4 times 1. If it were just 4 times 1, you would have a prime number. But these two factors don't make it a prime number. So, as you can see with that, you can have 2, 3, 7, well, should have put 5 first, 5, 11, so on and so forth. Just those types of numbers that only have factors of 1 in themselves. So that's very simple. Okay, so now let's talk about factoring numbers. And I kind of alluded to factoring numbers here when I did 4. So we can say, let's go for 8, yeah. So 8 is equal to, alright, so when you factor numbers, you're trying to break the number down into smaller parts. So, into its constituent parts, I should say. Now, 8 is 2 times 4, because 2 times 4 is equal to 8. Alright, so this is a factorization of 8. I factored it out into its smaller parts. So now we can do, let's say 10. 10 is equal to 2 times 5. So these are the factors of 10, 2 and 5. And 9, we can do 9 is equal to 3 times 3. But also we can say that 9 is equal to 1 times 9. So all the factors of 9 will be 1, 3, and 9. These are the factors of 9. Alright. So now, that's basically factoring. Now let's talk about prime factorization. So as I said before, prime numbers are numbers whose factors are only 1 in itself. So prime factorization is factoring a number to its smallest parts to prime numbers. So let's go with 8 again as a good example. 8 is equal to 2 times 4. And then we can say that 4 is equal to 2 times 2. So therefore, the prime factorization of 8 is equal to 2 times 2 times 2. So this is a prime factorization, because we broke down 8, we factored it into primes, to the prime number. Now, something like 10 here that we have, this is factored into, this is already factored into primes, because once you do 2 times 5, 2 is a prime number, 5 is a prime number, that's already factored into primes. Alright, so that's pretty simple there. Okay, so just going through this video pretty quick. So now let's go with least common multiples. Okay, so now least common multiples. First off, what are multiples? Multiples are basically a number multiplied by other natural numbers. It could be in sequence or not. So, well, I should say natural numbers multiplied by the same number. Different natural numbers. So natural numbers examples would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So now if we have multiples of something, we're going to have the same, it's going to go up by the same amount or down by the same amount. So let's say we have these numbers here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now let's say we're going to use 3. So that's going to be 3 times 1 here. So 3 times 1, then we're going to have 3 times 2, 3 times 3, and 3 times 4. So this is going to be 3, 6, 9, and 12. So as you can see, the difference between each of these numbers is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 3 is 9, 9 plus 3 is 12. So we're having multiples of 3. So, and that coincides with the definition of multiplication anyway, because when you're multiplying something, you're just adding a certain number of times, a certain number of times. Such as if you take 3 times 4, you're doing 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So 3 added to itself 4 times. And likewise, you could be thinking about it as 4 3 times. 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. So these are multiples. You're going up by a certain amount each time. These are multiples of 3. Okay, so now what's the least common multiple? So least common multiple, I think it's a bit confusing sometimes. The name least common multiple sometimes could be confusing to beginning students in basic algebra, because it could be thought of as least common multiple. You can think the multiple that's the least common, or the multiple that shows up the least amount of times. But that's not correct. The least common multiple is common multiples that are least in magnitude. I'm probably not saying that very effectively, but let's just give an example. So let's say you want to find the least common multiple between 3 and 4. So we have 3, and then we have 4. Okay, so let me just fix this here real quick. Alright, that looks a little better. Okay, so now let's think of the multiples of 3. So these were the multiples of 3 so far. So we can go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Let's go up to 3 times 5. Now, for 4 it would be 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. Okay, so we have the same amount of multiples here between 3 and 4, but we have to see which ones are common. So there's no 3's here, there's no 6's here, there's no 9's here, but there's 12. So 12 is a common multiple. So common as in 3 and 4 have this multiple in common. And least common multiple as in 3, and this is the least in magnitude, or least in size of the numbers. So if we continue, let's say we can get 18, 21, 24. So here we have 24. Okay, so these are the multiples of 4, these are the multiples of 3. Now we have another common multiple, but 24 is not the least common multiple. 12 is still the least common multiple because it's smaller than 24. So we have common multiples of 12 and 24. Okay. And the least in magnitude is 12. So this is the least common multiple between 3 and 4. Alright. So now, this could be very tedious, doing it in this way, just writing out multiples and checking which is the least of the common multiples. So what we could do is, there's a better method, I think. So let's try something with bigger numbers, 10 and 8. Okay, so the multiple, well, listen, we're not going to write out the multiples just yet. We're going to write them out later just to confirm that it's correct. So let's say we have 10, and we have, so let's factor out 10. So we can have 2 times 5, right? Okay, so we don't have to put down the 1 and 10. That's it's not technically necessary to get the least common multiple in this method. So now we have, remember how I said when we factor 8, it's 2 times 4, but then the 4 is 2 times 2, so we're going to have 2 times 2 times